Lovely seeing everyone. Super excited. I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us for today's Donorbox webinar session. My name is Britt, and I am the nonprofit strategist here at Donorbox. Many of you probably have heard about us, but for those of you who haven't, we're really here to make fundraising easier, right? We provide the tools, the resources, the technology, because we know how important it is for all of you to really engage your donors on a deeper level. And we're all here, right? Because we really want to raise more money and make a bigger impact. And, you'll find at Donorbox, our team, we're global. We are so proud to say that over the last decade, we've helped over 80,000 organizations all over the world raise more than $2 billion in donations. And for those of you who haven't tried out Donorbox, you can visit us at donorbox.org and set up an account for free. All right, so let's get to it. The reason we're here, right? The party, we are so excited to welcome a very special guest and friend, Haley Cooper. Haley is joining us from sunny California, and she's going to discuss a very unique topic, not just on board governance, but how can we use attachment theory to really not just build a deeply engaged board, but a board that is actively fundraising, right? This is like your unicorn board. Who doesn't love this, right, Haley? Before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about the amazing Haley. She is a certified MC Train the Trainer. Haley, you're going to have to let us know what the heck that means, but it's big, right? Haley is the founder of the consulting firm, The Savvy Fundraiser. She is the host for Lead with Heart podcast, and she has so much board experience. She's not just talking it, she's actually living it. She's served as a past board chair for the Orange County Nonprofit Professionals Network. She's served as a board member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. And like many of us, her nonprofit journey started so long ago in 2012, where she co-founded the NGO PB&J in Malawi, Africa. And you guys, she just has an amazing portfolio of experience in fundraising and leadership and board development. You guys, we are in such great hands today. So Haley, before I hand this over to you, we get asked so much from people joining in, is this webinar recorded? Yes, it is recorded. We completely understand that as nonprofit professionals, you guys might have to jump off, right? And life gets busy. So we have you covered. The session will last about an hour long. And like all of our webinar sessions, they're supposed to be fun and interactive. So please, please, please don't hold back. I am gathering that you have so many burning questions. Drop those questions throughout the chat, throughout Haley's presentation. And Jenna, my amazing colleague, is here on the back end. Jenna, can you say hi in the chat? Perfect. Jenna and I are going to be marking as many questions as we can so that, Haley can try to answer all of the questions at the end in the Q&A. All right. So Haley, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and go off stage. And hey, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It's always nice to hear your bio back. Well, thank you everyone for being here on this Thursday in the middle of summer. You are such a gift to me and your community, and I appreciate you joining me on this journey today, which we are going to talk about how to engage, educate, and encourage your board, and not really a traditional approach to board and fundraising. So thank you so much. And in the chat box, let me know why it is important for you to be here today. So today what we're going to learn, just a little bit of overview before we get down into the nitty gritty, because that's why I know that you're here. You want to know the nitty gritty. You want some practical strategies. We're going to learn some educational techniques for your board, motivational strategies to encourage your board to get off of their butts and actually go out and be ambassadors for your organization, tips to ensure effective communication and collaboration from the top down to down up, and practical tools to enhance board engagement and fundraising. At the end of the day, that's what we all want, right? Like Britton said, I am a certified EMC Train the Trainer, and EMC was founded by Dr. Lola Gershfeld. It's based on the attachment science, which was discovered by Dr. John Bowlby, and it's all about mastering the art of relationships within your teams. And so it's called emotional connection leadership. And we're going to dive deep into what that means. I'm going to be teaching you about the training that I am certified in and the knowledge that I have around building engaged boards, because it all starts with emotional connection. Like she said, I am the founder of the Savvy Fundraiser, a nonprofit consulting and coaching business dedicated to helping nonprofits get buy-in and belonging to do the right fundraising strategies and raise more revenue. I also am the host of the Lead with Heart podcast and soon to be adding author to my name by the end of this year. My journey, like she said, started in nonprofits in Malawi, Africa, starting a peanut butter factory, which is what my book is about, called Grow So Lead, about my journey of starting a nonprofit at the age of 24. It's called PB&J, Peanut Butter and Jesus, and it helps not only nourish lives, but also I was able to start it from the ground up to strategic operation to widespread distribution. Since then, I have worked in both small and large nonprofit teams, focusing mostly on human services, homelessness, and youth sectors. And I have worn all the hats like many of you probably here today. I've done fundraising, grant writing, leadership, board development. And through this experience of not only working in nonprofits, but also just hearing from my colleagues, in 2022, I started the Savvy Fundraiser, because I truly believe buy-in and belonging among teams and stakeholders is the key to fundraising success. I believe that also focusing on the right fundraising strategies will help you raise more revenue. So in this process, which we'll be talking about today, I leverage the EMC process, attachment science, and effective communication to align leadership teams, reduce turnover, and develop high-performing teams. And like she said, I'm an active leader in nonprofit community, so I don't just talk the talk, I also walk the walk. I'm the past board chair of the Orange County Nonprofit Professionals Network, and I'm also a past board member of the local chapter of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. So let's get into it. Why board involvement matters. The board is the cornerstone of an organization's governance structure. Its primary responsibility is to establish and uphold the organization's mission, vision, and values. This involves setting strategic goals and ensuring that the organization adheres to its core principles. Effective governance ensures the organization remains aligned with its purpose and is accountable to its community. Its support encompasses the board's role in resource development and organizational advocacy. Board members are expected to contribute their time, their expertise, and resources to help the organization achieve its goals. This includes fundraising, our favorite topic, which we're talking about today, networking, and serving as ambassadors to the community. By leveraging their professional and personal connections, board members can enhance the organization's visibility and credibility. Board members serve as key representatives of the organization to the community. And a strong, active board, again, enhances the organization's reputation and credibility. And it helps build trust with donors, partners, and the overall public. And the board members are also there to ensure the organization meets the highest standards of integrity and performance, accountability, and stewardship of the money entrusted to them. So some of the main challenges that I have seen working not only in boards as a board member, but also in boards that I have worked with. The number one challenge is people do not understand their roles as a board member and specifically in fundraising. Many board members are unsure of what is expected of them, and they may not understand the difference between governance and active fundraising. And this uncertainty leads to hesitation and inaction. I'll also say there's a lot of boards that sometimes go from working boards to governing boards, and it's really hard to distinguish those roles through that transition. So maybe as a working board, they were in the weeds doing the work, and then they became a governing board and they're becoming more strategic and operational. And so that distinguishing between those roles, they don't understand it through that transition. Board members are not always provided with clear, actionable goals, specifically as it relates to fundraising. So without defined targets, it's difficult for them to gauge their progress or success. And board members need specific instructions on how they can contribute to fundraising efforts. When roles and expectations are vague, it leads to a lack of motivation and participation. And there's often minimal accountability. There's no system in place to hold board members accountable for their fundraising responsibilities. And this lack of accountability results in low engagement and follow through. Another topic, which is my favorite board member, when they say, Haley, I will not make the ask. I do not fundraise. Do not put me on the fundraising committee. Because there is a fear of fundraising. Many board members feel uncomfortable asking for donations. They fear rejection or damaging relationships. And this fear stems from a lack of confidence, an understanding of what fundraising actually is, and a practice in making the ask. You see, fundraising has a negative perception. Fundraising is often viewed as a daunting and unpleasant task, and board members may have a preconceived notion, and it's all about their mindset, that fundraising is about pressuring people for money, which if you're here today, you know that that is not what fundraising is about. There's also personal barriers. They may have past negative experiences related to fundraising or money, and addressing these fears is crucial for overcoming the challenges to fundraising. And also, board members often assume that fundraising is solely the staff's responsibility, although we all know board members are fiscally responsible for the organization, so they have to participate in fundraising. And there may be a belief that fundraising only involves asking for larger donations or just asking in general, and overlook the importance of stewardship, of networking, and the most critical part of fundraising, which is relationship building. Also, when it comes down to it, they lack inefficient training on how to effectively participate in fundraising efforts. Board members lack knowledge of key fundraising strategies and techniques, and without proper guidance, they feel ill-equipped to contribute meaningfully and go out into the community and become your best ambassadors and advocates. Lastly, challenge number 3 that I see most in boards is inconsistent communication. Board members and staff often work in silos. I mean, when I was in a nonprofit, I literally had to fight my way to be in a board meeting to share about fundraising. We operate in silos. We often don't know what each person is doing. And this leads to a disconnect in fundraising efforts. Lack of communication and collaboration hinders that unified approach to fundraising. We need each other. We need to work together towards that common goal. Infrequent board meetings result in missed opportunities for coordination and planning. Consistent structured meetings, which we'll talk about how to approach these today, are essential for keeping fundraising initiatives on track. And there might be misalignment of objectives of the fundraising strategy of where you're going. And without that clear and consistent communication, board members may not fully understand or align with the organization fundraising goals. And we've all been there in a boardroom where they throw out all these ideas and adds more to your plate because there isn't that consistent communication and understanding of where you want to go and how you can go there together. So again, this misalignment can lead to efforts that are not cohesive or effective. So we're going to talk about 3 parts today. We're going to talk about board engagement, board education, and board encouragement. So imagine this. You show up to a board meeting where people are speaking behind each other's backs, the meetings turn loud and confrontational, and you are scared to share your ideas or provide feedback. Trust me, I've been in those boardrooms. Verse, you show up to a boardroom where everyone is working together towards a common goal, meetings are challenging yet respectful, and everyone is willing to share their ideas and accept feedback. Let me know which organization is going to win in the chat box. Which organization, which boardroom would you rather be in? And the difference between these 2 board meetings is how the organization and leadership and the board chair is able to handle the source of conflict. So I always like to say, lack of board member engagement is not a laziness issue. It is an emotional disconnection issue. So let me tell you a little story about a board that I was working with. When I first joined, I was excited and eager to make a difference. This board had hired me for fundraising. However, when I got to that first board meeting, I noticed that despite everyone's enthusiasm for the organization, how much they cared for the organization, their fundraising efforts were falling short. They weren't able to make decisions around fundraising. And it wasn't because these board members were lazy or disinterested. In fact, they were some of the most passionate and dedicated individuals to the nonprofit sector that I probably have ever met. The problem was something deeper. It was emotional disconnection. During these meetings, there was this like palpable sense, you could see it in people, and this was virtual, but you could see it in people's faces of distance. And like I said, in that first situation, in the last slide, there was yelling, there was screaming, there was gossip and slander. And board members, while committed to the mission, didn't truly know or trust each other. And this lack of emotional connection made collaborative fundraising efforts feel forced and uncomfortable. People hesitated to share bold ideas or take risks because they didn't feel secure enough to be vulnerable. And it was clear that without genuine emotional bonds, their potential was truly stifled. And you see, when we become disconnected, the emotional part of our brain, our amygdala, takes over our prefrontal cortex, which is our logic center. And this is where we can communicate, we can collaborate, we can have empathy for each other. So if our emotional part of our brain takes over our prefrontal cortex, we lose all of those abilities. And it is hard for us to be open to other people's opinions, and it's hard for us to move forward together. It is very difficult to collaborate and be empathetic towards each other. So recognizing this, I decided to introduce, like I talked about before, the EMC leadership principles and attachment science to our board. We started with small changes, which we're going to talk more in detail about today. More personal check-ins, team building exercise, and open discussions about individuals' fears around the organization. And you see, each person, once we were able to have those conversations, shared the same fear. They all wanted the same thing for the organization, but somewhere along the way, they had gotten into this negative cycle of engagement. So by sharing those fears together, they realized how important they were to each other and how much they cared about each other and the mission. And slowly but surely, they began to build a culture of trust and emotional safety. And through this experience, I learned that the key to effective board involvement in fundraising isn't just about providing the right tools or setting those clear expectations and roles. It's about fostering emotional connection and creating that environment where everyone feels valued, understood, and inspired to contribute their best. When boards are emotionally connected, they can unlock their full potential and drive their organizations to new heights. So, what is attachment science? Attachment says that when we work together, we depend on each other. This dependency creates an attachment and turns on our bonding needs. And emotional connection is the glue that holds that bond together. And as leaders, it's really important to understand emotional intelligence. Leaders who prioritize emotional connections in not only the boardroom, but generally in the workplace and in their relationships, sets a positive example influencing the broader organizational culture. To be able to lead, we have to understand the 4 components of emotional connection. And this is about understanding our own emotional experiences, how they contend with the emotional experiences of others, and this allows us to maintain those healthy relationships and build more emotionally intelligent organizations. So it's not necessarily that we have less conflict. There might be conflict, but we are able to understand our own emotions, how they contend with others. We're able to be more empathetic towards other people's situations, and we're able to create positive cycles of engagement. Again, these 4 components help us to navigate through those complex emotional situations, those conflicts, in an effortless way because we understand them better. So the first of the 4 components of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So again, it's understanding your emotions within yourself, understanding your triggers and your automatic responses. Self-aware people are aware of their emotions and how their emotions affect others, and they can regulate themselves accordingly. Self-management is about how to identify your fears and needs and the negative cycle of engagement, and how to reach again for those positive connections because you're attuning to the fears and needs of other people. It's about expressing your emotions appropriately. So you're able to make decisions based on facts rather than emotional reactions. Social awareness is how to create a safe environment for people to share their fears and needs, and how to respond to emotions correctly, how to be emotionally responsive, accessible, and engaged. And lastly, relationship management. That's about how to create positive cycles of engagement and lead to bonding, productive conversation. It helps us manage our emotional connections with other people through understanding emotions and empathy instead of resorting to criticism or outbursts as responses. So let's talk about board dynamics. As humans, we are wired for connection with the people we depend on. And when we lose that connection, our brain automatically becomes distressed. We're unable to focus on tasks and informations. So it's important to focus on emotionally reconnecting with each other because our brain becomes free to tackle those challenges. Like I said before, when we have those high emotions, our amygdala takes over our prefrontal cortex. So we're not able to think, collaborate, communicate, or have empathy with each other. So emotional connection is key, and to understand that each person is wired for connection, specifically as we're talking today in the boardroom. An emotionally connected environment is essential for creating safe spaces for people to express differences of opinions and create an inclusive environment. Such an environment allows for individuals to tune into their emotions, understand how they feel, and articulate a clear message of what they need, and offer the same emotional safety to others on the board. High-functioning boards are emotionally connected and see change as an opportunity for growth and greater success. So, the role of emotional connection leadership in the boardroom. Being an effective leader requires the ability to be emotionally present, especially when there is stress or crisis. And as nonprofits, we experience a lot of that. When leaders are emotionally closed off, they send the wrong signals to others. For example, a worried leader may appear angry or aggressive. However, when they're able to share their softer emotions, such as, I feel worried, they start to send clear signals on what is happening with them. And it opens up a space for other people to join them in that, to help them feel less alone. And it's all about really feeling Are you there for me? Do I matter to you? Can I count on you? Can I depend on you? Will you respond to me when I need you? And when board members feel that sense of belonging, they are likely to be more engaged and committed to the organization's mission. Engaged board members are more likely to participate actively in meetings, committees, and fundraising activities. So, the key traits of engaged board members. An engaged board member is instrumental to the success and vitality of any nonprofit organization. We all know their commitment, passion, and proactive involvement can significantly influence how the organization charts its way forward. Engaged board members exhibit a deep passion for the organization's mission and a commitment to its success. Again, they actively participate in board meetings, attend events, and are enthusiastic advocates for the mission. Their dedication is evidence, and they're willing to invest time and energy and bring people into the mission to support you along the way. Engaged board members are proactive. They're taking initiative to contribute beyond their roles. They seek out ways to add value rather than just sit there and be told what to do. They are not passive attendees, but active contributors who drive the organization forward. They possess a strategic mindset focusing on long-term goals and sustainability of the organization. Engaged board members understand the importance of setting clear objectives, monitoring progress, and adjusting strategies as needed. They bring forward a forward-thinking perspective and help the organization navigate challenges and opportunities. Effective board members are team players who value collaboration and respect diverse viewpoints. They foster a positive and inclusive board culture, encouraging open communication and constructive debate. Their ability to work well with others ensures that decisions are well-rounded and reflective of the collective wisdom. And lastly, they are active participants in fundraising efforts. They understand their critical role in stewarding the donations and of their fiscal responsibility to provide financial resources in achieving the organization's mission. They leverage their personal networks, make personal contributions, and advocate for the organization's needs, helping to secure the necessary funding and resources. So again, the primary need among board members and just any human in general is to feel a sense of connection and bonding. And the way to do that is through emotional connection, because that is the key for effective communication. Because again, emotional connection relaxes your amygdala so that you can access your prefrontal cortex so you can communicate, collaborate, and work better together. So it's really important for board members to understand the organization's mission and ensure all board members understand and are committed to it. Onboarding is key. From the get-go, from the moment they are introduced to the board, they have to understand, not only to feel welcome and valued, they have to understand what their expectations are. They have to understand the mission and the programs of the organization and how they can best contribute. You also want to create rituals of emotional connection. So whether it's a board meeting or seeing them wherever, you want to make sure people feel welcomed. So that could be through a smile, handshakes, hugs. I don't know if we're allowed to do that anymore, but hugs. We provide that feedback loop that nurtures our connections and give us the message that we are important. So whether it's an in-person or virtual meeting, by simply smiling or saying, welcome, and saying their name, they automatically feel that sense of being seen, that they are welcomed there. And more importantly than just words, it's really important to understand what your facial cues are, what your body language says, because your emotions speak more than words. The voice and the energy we project represent the value and the sense of belonging that we want to create within the organization. And again, this reroutes the pathways in the brain, creating an environment where people feel that they can be more productive, creative, innovative, and take risks together. It's also really important that outside of just board meetings, you take the time to have personal one-on-one connections. This can be biannually or annually, but you want to make sure that, like I said, from the get-go, you understand what your board members' strengths are, but also check in with them to see if how they're contributing is the best of their time. What are their strengths? What do they enjoy doing? Just like a donor, you really want to take that one-on-one time to build relationships with your board members to make sure that they understand their role, you understand their passions and interests and their strengths, and make sure that they align so that they are contributing the best of their time. You also want to recognize each member's contributions and celebrate personal milestones. And like I said, just like you would a donor, find out what makes the board member tick. What are his and her strengths and passions? What is the intersection of those passions with your organization? What motivates this board member to think of his or her goals between board meetings? And you also want to ensure that in the meetings itself, the board meetings, that they are inclusive, that they allow for input and feedback from all memberships to create a sense of ownership and belonging, to allow every single person to have a voice at the table. Like I said before, one of the most challenges that board members face is understanding their roles, not only just in board governance, but also in fundraising. So expectations, like I said, from the get-go must be made clear, from board recruitment and screening to selecting a board chair who's comfortable addressing board member shortfalls. So setting the expectations is about getting really clear on what your organization actually needs. It's not just putting people on your board to put people on your board. What does your board actually need to be successful, to drive the mission forward? And this can ever be changing, right? Because your organization is ever evolving, and there might be certain periods where you need more of this or you need more of that. But it's really important to understand what your goals are so that you can fill those roles effectively. And then you can set out those board expectations based on what your organization needs. A nonprofit has little hope of increasing engagement and improving board fundraising results if board members don't understand what is expected of them, and also if they're not held accountable. In a 2019 board engagement survey, respondents felt one of the weakest areas of engagement for their board was understanding the board member role. Lack of knowledge about how a board is to be run was one response, along with diving too far into the minutiae. We used to have too many board members without any management experience, and they would give bad advice. That has changed. And board members seem unsure of their role and lack experience of board fundraising. So the solution, because I'm not just going to leave you hanging, is to provide clear job descriptions, offer orientation sessions, and regularly communicate expectations. And make sure that if you want a board member to show up to an event, it's in their job description, it's in their board expectation form that they sign, you are holding them accountable to show up. Obviously, there's personal circumstances that come up, but making sure that board members are held accountable to those organizations. And again, you also want to have them have buy-in and belonging in these expectations and foster those emotional connections by engaging them in discussions about their roles and how they can make a significant impact in the organization. So you want to establish effective meetings and agendas that actually are productive, that aren't talking around in circles. Like I shared that story before of that board that I was working with. Everyone was speaking the same language, But meeting after meeting, they weren't getting anywhere because they were talking in circles. Put in the chat box, yes, raise a hand if you've ever been in those meetings. So the way that you structure meetings and agendas is super important. Effective meetings go beyond just sharing information, but it is an opportunity, again, to build those strong emotional connections between the leader and within the group. Meetings are an invaluable setting to harness collective thoughts around key issues. And again, your board might meet monthly, maybe biannually, quarterly. So it's really important to, during these meetings, utilize the best of your ability and the best of your time. It goes beyond just the important, dashboards and the outcomes and the finances. Those are all really important, obviously, and part of board governance. But it's the discussion and engagement with the content that brings the value to the meeting. Approach meetings from the standpoint that everyone is valued and important. Because if you don't, people can sense that, and you'll create an environment where some people don't have their voice at the table. So again, before you approach the meeting, understand that every single person that is there has value and is important. Find ways to include everyone in the agenda. And you want to maintain those open lines of communication and share information ahead of the meeting. You want to engage everyone during the meeting, invite feedback and input from everyone, and use affirmation statements through the meeting. Being like, Susan, I really appreciated your perspective there. Thank you so much for sharing. And again, you want to share information ahead of time so that people feel well prepared on how they can contribute to the conversation. The next part we're going to talk about is education. So beyond engagement, like I said, board members, if they don't feel prepared for their role, then they're not going to do well. They're not going to understand how they can best contribute. So it's really important for organizations to educate their board members on fundraising. Educating board members can go a long way towards making them more comfortable and effective. So you want to offer training and development opportunities to keep board members informed and engaged. You want to encourage their personal and professional growth by addressing their individual needs and interests. So again, that goes through the personal connection and the one-on-one connection where you understand what their needs and interests and strengths are. Emotional connections can be strengthened by investing in their development and showing that you value their growth. You want to promote ongoing education and development opportunities for board members, such as you can introduce a lunch and learn session or have a board meeting around a learning session where experts present new fundraising techniques and trends, because I love a good third-party person sharing what you already share in your boardroom, but it's important to have that outside perspective sometimes and people to understand what fundraising actually is. Like 80% of individuals give funding and only corporations give 5%. Like understanding that chart is really important, and most people don't understand like what the fundraising makeup actually is. So it's really important to understand, board members to understand what fundraising is. You could also provide access to online courses and workshops. Obviously, like we are here today at Donorbox, they have a wealth of resources for you. So you want to promote that ongoing education through resources, through inviting experts in, through training to spark enthusiasm and new ideas among the board members. So, like I said before, many board members don't understand board or what fundraising is. And they think that, oh, well, on the board expectation form, it said I had to give $500 in July. I'm done. Like, obviously, it's a lot more than that. And it's understanding and educating them on how their contributions can make a meaningful impact. And other board members, like I said before, have a fear of fundraising or a lack of understanding of what fundraising is. They view it as a narrow specialty done by specialists or staff members, and it's not the responsibility of every board member. Finally, many board members may look to the executive director to make fundraising happen, while the EDs feel that they need better nonprofit board engagement in the fundraising process. Can you put a yes or a hand if you've been in that where the board just expects the ED or the staff to do it all? But board members have to understand that they play a vital role as ambassadors and advocates. They are often the most visible representatives of the organization and can significantly influence its reputation and reach. Their responsibility is to promote the organization's mission and programs to the public. So again, it's really important to have the board members understand what you actually do. And maybe at each board meeting, you can help them recite the mission until they think about it in their sleep. Like every single person has to understand and have that same internal clarity and communication about what your organization actually does. Because when they do, when they understand, when they feel comfortable about speaking that message, they're more likely to go out and share it with their friends. You also want them to understand that fundraising is more than just the ask. It's about building and nurturing relationships with key stakeholders. And this includes donors, partners, city or government leaders, and community leaders. Advocating for the organization's mission and raising awareness about its impact. So maybe they can engage in public speaking. And again, you could write the speech for them, you can be there with them, but they are the ones representing. They can attend events and leverage media opportunities to enhance the organization's profile. By actively educating and engaging the board members in these roles, it helps them to build trust and support for the organization. Again, and it comes back to ensuring its long-term success and impact. Education comes down to providing timely information and communication about the organization. It's really important, like I said before, to provide relevant and timely information prior to meetings, because then people understand the issues as well as it encourages the participation in these meetings. You want to educate, or you want to be transparent and educate the board members on what is going on, because when they're presented on time, members feel valued and important and have that adequate time to prepare. So you might be wondering how to present to the board, how to educate them, how to present certain information to the board. Most presentations are transactional in nature. They're data-driven, they're information-heavy, they're full of a budget, financial spreadsheets, pulled from your QuickBooks. And this is sacrificing and while, like I said before, these are really important. They're part of the board governance structure. But they also sacrifice the opportunity to connect with your board and create that emotional engagement with each other and with the presenter. And this is where storytelling is key. It allows for that emotional experience to drive engagement and convey key aspects of the topics being discussed. So it's not just about the numbers, it's also about storytelling, because people relate to stories and they're more likely to engage in them and understand their role. So it's really important to have both the data, the finances, but also a component of storytelling. And when materials are presented on time, members feel valued and important, and they have better understanding about how their roles contribute, and they're more motivated and have higher engagement and performance. So here are some education ideas, and I would love to know in the chat box if you have currently education, which one of these have you used within your organization? Or if you use something else that's not on this list. Like I said before, we have to invest in the personal and professional growth of our board members, but also our staff. But that's a whole nother topic. Today, we're talking about our board. So it's really important to provide those continuous learning opportunities, again, to help deepen your board's members' understanding of your organization. According to Leading with Intent, 69% of organizations use written resources to educate board members, while more interactive educational activities such as training, seminars, and webinars are far less common. You want to ensure board members have the tools and resources they need to fundraise effectively. So, number one is strategy. You can create a fundraising toolkit, and I am providing you a free fundraising toolkit at the end of these slides. That includes templates, scripts, and best practices. You want to offer training sessions on using these tools. I know Giving Tuesday is coming up soon, year-end giving. So you can use this toolkit to be able to equip your board members with the things that they need to fundraise successfully. And lastly, we're going to talk about board encouragement. Again, board members need the right tools and resources, and they also need to feel encouraged to be able to carry out their roles in fundraising. So it's not just about providing them the toolkit, it's equipping them with the tools and resources to be able to do it effectively. So sometimes if you're setting up a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign, I know it takes extra work for you, but maybe it's setting up the page and just sending them the link and sending them the emails. And again, I'm giving you a template at the end of these slides to be able to do it themselves. You want to give them ownership of specific projects or committees that align with their skills and interests. Another way to encourage your board member is to develop a development and mentorship program. So like I said, I'm the past board chair of the Orange County Nonprofit Professionals Network. And we have, as a past board chair, I am in charge of the mentorship committee. So we meet with each board member on a quarterly basis to understand, to have that safe space to talk, right? Where they can share with us their experience of the board so far and share any ideas that they might not feel comfortable sharing in a boardroom. It ensures that they have that strong connection. It provides that psychological safe environment, and it allows them to be able to speak up in an environment, like I said before, where they might not otherwise feel safe to do so. So you could pair some new board members with seasoned mentors to provide guidance and support. It can also serve as a place for resource sharing. So you can provide access to resources and training that help board members perform their roles effectively. And then you can discuss about it and have someone to mentor them, to be there for them, to ask questions. Again, it's really important to communicate to your board, to have that ongoing communication. So you want to share stories and invite them to be a part of the mission, whether that's attending an event, a volunteer experience, whatever it is. Help them to understand their role in being a part of the board. You want to include them in your messaging. So if you have an email newsletter, make sure that they are on it and you are communicating impact by sending those newsletters and regular updates. And during a campaign, like we all have coming up at year end, regularly check in to see if they need support. And lastly, before we get to Q&A, you want to create a culture open to learning, experimenting, and thriving. Create an environment where board members can openly discuss their fears and concerns about fundraising. You can facilitate group discussions or one-on-one because some people feel more comfortable with that. And focus on identifying and addressing specific fears. You could host a board retreat and hold a session where members share their anxieties about fundraising. And now is the perfect time to do that. As you're going into the year end, now is the perfect time to discuss any anxiety that any board member might have. so that you can address them effectively and make sure that they, again, have those tools and resources to be able to fundraise and contribute effectively. So, like I said, here is access to the board member fundraising toolkit. You'll get social media posts, email posts, example peer-to-peer fundraising pages, where you can literally just download it, take it for your team, and be able to literally just input your mission, your impact, your stories, and share it with your board. Next, I'll give a few more minutes for people to. Next, if you want to discuss anything about board members, you can book a 60-minute call with me. I literally, I could have gone all day. So I love to talk about this. You can always book a 60-minute call with me. It's free time, because I love to talk about this. And then lastly, I am offering 50% off my fundraising course uniquely for you, with the code half off. We talk about fundraising, board fundraising through this emotional connection process and how to really build that culture of connection within your organization. There we go. And we'll go to the Q&A.
Haley, thank you so much. As a former ED and development director, I think one thing that really resonated with me is working with all the boards I've worked with. You know, we put into place that strong onboarding program, the job descriptions, all of the policies, but something completely invisible from all of this was really that piece about building emotional intelligence, right? And I've never honestly attended a session on that. So thank you, first of all. And, you know, because we know, right, all of us nonprofit professionals, conflicts do arise. That is a sign of a healthy board. And so I just absolutely love that you gave us really actionable ways to really build that self-awareness and connect with our board. So thank you so much, Haley. We have, oh my goodness, we have so many questions all. We are almost at the top of the hour. So here's what I'm going to propose, if you're all okay with that. Haley, and let me know too, let's run 5 minutes over because we have some great questions. But before we get to the Q&A, Donorbox, we have an amazing announcement. I'm not sure how all of you are managing all of your donors, and no judgment if this is you. If you're using Excel, if you don't have a CRM, or your CRM is simply just very basic. Well, Donorbox, we've just recently rolled out our first Donorbox CRM. And what I absolutely love about it is it has some really powerful segmenting features so that you can really group different donors according to different things that you're looking for. You want to know, you have donors that are returning 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They might make great recurring donors. You want to know about your donors that you haven't heard from for the last 48, months. Donorbox CRM, we have some amazing segmenting tools. And I would say, as a former ED, unlike a lot of the other CRMs, we have a first and sector mail center where you're no longer toggling between a third-party mailing center. Everything is seamlessly in one place so that you can engage with your donors on that really meaningful level. The exciting thing is, all from July 1st to the end of September, Donorbox CRM is absolutely free for all active Donorbox users. That's amazing, right? Super exciting about that. And if you're not a Donorbox user, don't worry, because Jenna, can you please drop the link to the interest form in the chat? So Jenna's going to drop the link to a form, super short and sweet form. Fill that out. And within the next few days, a member of our team will follow up so that you can play around and just see what our powerful tool is really about. All right, so let's see. We're almost at the top of the hour. Haley, We have some amazing questions. Gosh, I love the engagement all. It kind of speaks to this friction point with our boards, right? We love them. They have so much passion, but it's tricky to really engage them. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to throw out, Haley, the easiest one. Can you remind us what the name of the book you mentioned earlier in your presentation was? Emotional Connection. Do you remember what the name of that book was? And Haley, you're on mute.
Sorry. She does have a few books out now, but it's Emotional Connection Leadership. I'm happy to provide the link to you so you can share in the follow-up. So it's both a book and also the process that you mean my book or the book?
Actually, if you can throw out both, that would be great.
Okay, so Dr. Lila Gershfeld, I'm trained in her EMC trainer process. She has 2 books, Creating a Culture of Connection and also the EMC Leadership Framework book. You can find them on Amazon. I'm happy to share the link with you. And also, I am writing a book called Grow So Lead. You can pre-order it now about my experience of starting a nonprofit / peanut butter factory in Malawi, Africa at age 24.
Very
I
cool.
won't tell you how long ago that was. You can guess for yourself.
And Haley, we have some people joining from Malawi, Africa. So
Oh, how fun.
we're going to drop.
I wasn't in coma.
Very cool. Well, we're going to drop Haley's email in the chat if you have any other questions. Haley, about board members. Okay, we have a great question from Denise. If board members were previously engaged and now they're completely tapped out, what are your suggestions on how to replace them without kind of creating those bad feelings?
So I would get curious, right? Like I said in the beginning of the presentation, lack of board engagement isn't a laziness issue, it's an emotional disconnection issue. So if they were engaged at one point, what was the turning point that made them unengaged? Can you get curious and ask specific questions, whether it's directly to the board? Maybe you have that idea, because I think before jumping to assumptions and conclusions, it's really important to understand their own experiences within the board and if there is an emotional disconnection, because if that's what led them to be unengaged, if they don't understand their important role or how they're important they are to each other, maybe they lost that along the way. And again, it's a negative cycle of engagement that we get caught into. So it's not necessarily their fault. There's no blame. And so it's important to understand, was there a key moment or a key set of moments that led them to now become unengaged? And if there were, that's the positive thing, is that you can then start to create that emotional connection and re-engage them in the board. Obviously, there are times where, yes, your board has changed, it's evolved, and now it's time to put new board members on. But first, I would say get curious, ask questions, maybe interview certain board members. And if, let's say, it is just that time, maybe you can create a legacy board. So maybe these board members, there was never any board terms or board terms in your bylaws. Maybe you could create a legacy board where they still feel that they can contribute to the organization. Let's say they've been on the board for 20 plus years, and now it's like, okay, we need to bring in some fresh blood because our organization is now going this way. It helps them still feel contributing, but they don't have a voting role in the organization. So they still have like expectations to contribute financially. But I would say, yeah, first get curious. And then if it really is just your board has changed and your organization, think about creating that legacy board where they still have a part, but not necessarily that voting governance role in the organization anymore.
I love it. And I think as a follow-up question, Haley, from Denise, she asked a great question. Are these amazing people that have high emotional IQs, are they born like that? Or is it kind of a skill set that we have to cultivate? Where do we find these board members?
That's a great question. If I had that answer, I wouldn't do the work that I do, right? I think it's a learned skill. I think a lot of us, I always have this conversation, like a lot of us weren't taught to understand our own emotions. We weren't taught to kind of have some of these skills, right? So it is a learned skill. And by you as the leader modeling this within your organization, you can cultivate that that awareness in other people, right? You start to have these conversations. Maybe you start to be more vulnerable. People can access those skills. So I think, yes, it can be something that can be cultivated over time. And sometimes it takes the leader to be the first person that initiates that.
Got it. That's a great question, which is kind of a follow-up. It feels like a lot of these questions are very much interconnected. From Tina, the question is from Tina, should the mentorship, if there are difficult problems that arise, should it come from the ED or from another board member? What's your take there?
Yeah, so like I said, with the Orange County I don't think it should come from the ED because technically the board hires the ED, so there's a conflict of interest there. So I would, and they kind of oversee the ED. So like I said, I sit on the Orange County Nonprofit Professionals Network. I'm the past board chair. So in a typical committee structure, you would hopefully have an incoming board chair, a current board chair, and a past board chair. So I would make it the past board chair or have its own committee where a board member is representative of that mentorship committee, that they are responsible again for pairing new with an old board member, making sure that everyone feels responsible. Yeah, it should be a board member. It should not, it could be the current board chair too. But sometimes people don't feel comfortable talking to the direct leader. So again, it should not be the ED because the board oversees the ED and there's that conflict of interest. It should be a board member, appointed person, or a committee where people feel safe to voice their concerns.
I love it. And since we're running over hour, one more question for you from Christina. How often do you suggest a schedule where there's a retreat or a getaway to really kind of build and maintain those personal relationships with your board?
So when it comes to retreat, I would probably, like with the Orange County Nonprofit Professionals Network, we meet biannually. And we have, our role is to help with professional development of nonprofit professionals through experiential learning opportunities. So we have one that's specifically devoted to professional development where, a year ago we did strength finders within our team and each person got access to all of the 50, not just the top 5, but like all of their strengths. And then we discussed it with a coach. And then we have another board meeting that is specific for strategic development for the next year. So we're setting the budget, we're setting our communication calendar, we're like doing all of the things. So if you can, I would say at least annually, where you're really getting together, everyone is in the room, have some sort of team building exercise incorporated in the beginning, so that you're not just jumping right in to strategic. So everyone kind of feels, and they feel that like sense of, okay, we're here together, and then you can dive into the nitty gritty. You can have those complex conversations around the organization. So at least annually, if you can, biannually, and you can have it then be a little bit different.
Awesome. Well, very cool. We have so many questions and I'm so sorry we couldn't get to them within the hour, but don't worry. Jenna, can you please drop Haley's email in the chat? For any Donorbox product related questions, please reach out to us at support@donorbox.org. We're going to be here to answer all your questions. Haley, thank you so much. You are a ray of sunshine, full of so much wisdom and expertise. We are blessed to have you as a Donorbox ambassador. And thank you everyone for tuning in. As a former nonprofit professional, I know the work can be hard. It can be isolating and overwhelming. Don't give up. Donorbox team, we're here alongside you to provide you with those tools, those resources, so you can keep doing the meaningful work. Haley, before I forget, outside of the email, where can people find you?
Yes, that's great. And thank you so much. It's been such a joy. Obviously, I like to talk about this topic all day. So thank you so much for providing this space for other leaders to learn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Haley Cooper, CFRE. I'm wearing a pink jacket. You can't miss me. That's where I love to connect. Feel free to connect with me there. Obviously, you can find me on the Lead with Heart podcast, and also on my email. So feel free to connect, and I look forward to chatting soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Go off, have a beautiful week, and we'll follow up again with that recording and some helpful resources. Take care, everyone.